Hello friends, I'm Abby and today I will be telling you my spooky October TBR. I'm so excited. Spooky season is my favorite season to read because I absolutely love thrillers and horror novels and slow-paced spooky books, and I can't wait for this month's TBR. But I did kind of overdo it on the books that I got from the library this month. So what I've done is I've kind of split my TBR into two different piles. I have my pile of books that are my definitely want to get to lists, and a pile of books that are books that I would love to get to if I have time, but they are kind of on the back burner for me. They're not necessarily ones that I am itching to get onto my TBR right this second. So let's go through my definite TBR first. The first book I'm hoping to get on is Dark Dawn by Jay Kristoff, which I've already started. This is the final book in the Nevernight trilogy, so I'm not going to tell you much about it, but the Nevernight trilogy follows Mia, who is an assassin. She goes to an assassin school in the first book, and the trilogy follows her as she tries to seek vengeance against these men for the death of her family. So this is the third and final book in the series. I've already started it, and I'm hoping to finish it in October because this is dark and spooky and filled with blood and gore, so I feel like October will be the best time to finish it. The next book that I am excited and planning to read is Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. I saw this on Gabby Reed's channel, and I just had to read it. This book is a horror novel, and it features a man who writes horror novels, an author, and he's given the chance to stay in this potentially haunted house, a very spooky house that many people have had very negative experiences in. And he and I believe 3 other writers or directors of horror are all getting the chance to stay in this house. And I think things go wrong for them pretty quickly, considering that this is a horror novel. So I'm excited for the spooky, scary vibes. I'm ready to get scared this month. That's why I'm excited to get this one on. The next one is not necessarily horror, but it is definitely fitting for October, and that is The Library of the Unwritten. And this takes place in a library set in hell, where it is the library of all the stories that were unwritten by the authors. And there is Claire, who is kind of the librarian of this library. She's in charge of making sure nothing goes wrong. And one day, a hero escapes from his story and goes off in search for his author. And Claire has to go find him and stop him so that she can prevent this war between heaven and hell. Sounds so good. I've heard only good things about this, and I can't wait to get to it. I feel like it's kind of a modern classic, so I think that this kind of dark library setting will be perfect for fall. Next up is a classic dark academia book, and that is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This is all about a group of Shakespearean actors at this conservatory, and it follows them 10 years in the past where we know a murder happens, and then it also follows this man Oliver in the future, who was one of those students and who has spent the past 10 years in prison for committing this murder. And in this book we are following Oliver as he, in the future, like in present day, is talking to the police officer who put him away and is finally ready to talk about what happened 10 years in the past at the Shakespearean school. I've heard that it is dark and lyrical, it's filled with murder and mystery, and I think the idea of a Shakespearean society is just so good. The next book is part horror and part literary fiction, and that is The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig. I've never read a Chuck Wendig book before, but I've heard great things about this one, so I decided why not start here in the month of October. And this book is kind of this family story about a boy who grew up with an abusive father in this house, and he gets away, and then I believe he comes back to his family home. The dad comes back to his family home with his wife and his son, Oliver. Interesting that Oliver's in both books, but he comes back with his son Oliver, and Oliver starts experiencing some very sinister things that the dad had experienced while living in this house many years ago. So this sounds dark and spooky, but also like it's going to be a very hopeful look at family and love, and I can't wait to get into it. I think this will be the perfect blend for me because sometimes horror leaves me feeling really bleak, and this I think is going to have a nice hopeful twist. I guess we'll see. The next book I really want to get to is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth with illustrations by Sarah Lotman. I have been waiting to get my hands on a physical copy of this book because I want to read it with the illustrations. It looks absolutely stunning. I'll find an illustration for you. So it has illustrations throughout the book, and this book has two timelines. The first timeline is in 1902, following this group of girls who call themselves the Plain Bad Heroine Society, and they are at this boarding school. They create this group, and all of a sudden, women start going missing or dying, and then we flash forward to present day where we're following a film crew who finally gets into this boarding school that has been closed up for years since the murders, and they finally get in to make a documentary about it, but the past and the present start really combining together, and it starts to get very confusing as to what is real, what is the past, and what is actually going on at this boarding school. It sounds so good, like it's going to be some quintessential dark academia on top of, I believe, being queer. We love good representation in our dark academia. And then the last two books that I'm definitely going to get to are actually for Camp Weekend-Ween, hosted by Gabby Reads and Olivia Reads a Latte. There are 4 prompts, but because it is Halloween weekend and I don't know how much time I'm going to have, I picked up 2 books that I'm hoping to read for Camp Weekend-Ween, and I'm just going to combine 2 of the prompts. So, the first prompt is to read a book with a green cover, and the second prompt is to read a book that follows a group of teens. So I'm combining those and reading The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. This is the finale to the Truly Devious trilogy, which follows Stevie as she is at this boarding school, is trying to solve this years old murder that happened, I believe, in the 1920s. And now that she's at this boarding school trying to solve these murders, more murders are happening. And this is the finale of the trilogy, so we finally get to find out who the murderer is, what is going on, what is even happening at this school, and who's behind it all. Because as of right now, after the past 2 books, we've just gotten more questions. So I'm ready to finish it off. The third prompt is to read a slasher, thriller, or horror book, and the fourth prompt is to read a book with a camp setting. So I am so freaking excited to read Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell. I actually saw this. Gabby Reads posted a community post asking for recommendations for horror, and I was reading the comments and somebody recommended this book, and it really stuck out to me, specifically because they commented that the author of this book originally wrote this story on the Reddit subreddit Can't Sleep, No Sleep. And I read a story on the subreddit No Sleep years ago, and it has stuck with me. Like, it is one of the scariest stories I've ever read, and I just kept thinking the whole time, I can't believe they didn't put this in book form. And this won a contest on Reddit's horror community for being like the best scary story on there. So I had to pick it up when I heard about it. And this is about a romantic cabin getaway, so it has that camp setting, where this couple goes, and once they get there, they start to hear voices, and the husband starts to hear his wife talking in her sleep, and not only is she hearing whispers, but she is whispering back to what is talking to her. It sounds so creepy. There are dark figures. It says they hear the screams of animals, the cries of children, and the mad babble of 100 mournful voices coming from the nearby woods. And I can't wait to read this. It sounds so scary. It looks absolutely horrifying. Look at the back. It looks so terrifying. I literally cannot wait. Okay, now my giant stack of books that I would love to get to if I have time. The first one is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I would love to read this. I'm going to read this very soon, but I would love to read this month because the Buzzwordathon is The Elements. So this is the first book in the Broken Earth trilogy. So since it has Earth in it, I would love to read it for that. This follows a wife who comes home one day, the world is ending, and she comes home to her family to find that her husband has left with her daughter and has killed her son. And she kind of goes on a rampage to try to find him and bring her daughter home back to safety. Lots of questions. I've heard stunning things about this. So I'm eager to get into this and see what the hype is all about. Another book that I would like to read for the same reason as the Buzzwordathon is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. This is short, so I'm very hopeful about this one. But this features a story about a man who is writing a letter to his mom, and his mom cannot read, so she has no way to know what this letter says, but he's writing it to her anyway. And I believe it is a story about a gay man kind of revealing himself and telling the story of his family. And I just can't wait. This has made people cry. People have said this is the most beautiful book that they have ever read. And considering it's so short, I feel like I just had to pick it up. The next one that I would love to read for the Buzzwordathon is Elements by Sandra Cooper. And I got this book for Christmas. I haven't read it, but it is a book of poetry, which I've never really read unless we count Shel Silverstein. But this book, I would love to read this month because it is split into different elements. So space, air, fire, water, earth, and then elements in general at the end. And this on the back says it's a collection of poetry exploring life with chronic pain, mental health battles, and the journey of falling in love with yourself, which sounds exactly up my alley. Okay, now back to the spookies. I would love to read City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. So this is a story about a girl who almost drowned, or basically did drown, and then when she came back, she was able to pull back what they call the veil between life and death, and her best friend is even a ghost, so she's able to see some ghosts. Her parents are ghost hunters and don't know that she can see ghosts, but they get a gig in Scotland, and so they're headed to Scotland to look at graveyards and explore the ghosts there, and she goes with, obviously. And while she is there, she discovers that she doesn't know much about the veil, and things are much more dangerous than she expected them to be. I think this is going to be fast-paced and so cute. I am so excited to read V.E. Schwab's middle grade stuff because I've only ever read her adult books. Next up is Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough, and this is a thriller. It sounds on the surface like a fairly typical domestic thriller. It is about a girl who is new to town. She just got a new job. She goes out to a bar the night before her first day and kisses a man there that she has some sparks with, and he leaves immediately after. The next day at work, she finds out that it is her boss, and not long after that, she meets this woman, becomes her friend, finds out that that woman is the boss's wife. So things are very interesting, very layered, but things don't end up being what they seem in this relationship. And I've heard that this has a shocking twist that I will not see coming, and I'm ready to be shocked. The next book, again, is kind of genre-defying. It is part horror, part thriller, part fantasy. It is The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. This book features a girl who I think has been kidnapped and is kind of taken in by this man, almost cult-like, where her and these people call him God or Father, and they believe he's God or something like that. But she doesn't have any family outside of this group. Her parents have died, and she basically is content to live here. But Father goes missing, and now they are kind of exploring whether they can create a new God. Should they go find Father? What are the dangers of the outside world? It is very intriguing to me. I have no idea what to expect, and I'm not even going to look up anything else about it because I'm just excited to dive in. I've heard great things. Next up, I have two nonfiction books that I'm interested in that both seem perfect for spooky season. The first one is Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs by Caitlin Dowdy, and this is a book about big questions from tiny mortals about death. And Caitlin is a mortician, and she wrote this book answering a lot of people's questions about death from the viewpoint of a mortician, somebody who deals with death all the time. It's so short, and I've heard that it's funny, and I'm ready for a comedic book about death. And then the last one is a much more serious nonfiction, and that is The Five by Hallie Rubenhold, which is the untold lives of the women killed by Jack the Ripper. And that is really all you need to know. I believe that it is just a story following the women's lives to give their side of the story, rather than Jack the Ripper's. And then I have a stack of books that I'm not going to show you. I'll just show you this side. And they are for a secret TBR. I will give you a hint. It is based on a paranormal being. So keep your eyes open this month for that vlog coming your way. I am so excited for October's TBR. It is just going to be so full of spooky, atmospheric reads, and I know I won't get to all of these, but I'm so excited to get to any of them that I can. So thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if any of these books should be bumped up my TBR right away, because I have a lot on here. I need to know what is the good stuff. So comment your thoughts and share this video with anyone who you think would enjoy it. I will see you all next time. Bye, friends.